Good morning, StoneBridge family and real life Bible class. Do you realize that this is the 11th Zoom meeting that we've had as a class? I want to really again commend you for your faithfulness and your patience with us. We're always trying and learning some new things through this, and we've really grown as a class, and our leadership team has put our heads together. And today what you're witnessing is something else that we're learning and trying is we're going to be part live in the class and also part virtual. And the reason for that is the church is opening back up in a partial way this Sunday. And there will be a time when the classes will start to open up. But we want to respect everyone's position and their timing and their convictions, and are they able to come back to meet due to child care coverage or whatever the issue is. We don't want to lose any of you. We want to all stay connected. So we're going to be testing our technology and testing different ways to be live in the class, but also broadcast virtually for those who can't be in the class. So thank you for being patient with us. Today we are in Psalms again. We're going to be looking at Psalms chapter 91, but just a few brief review of the book of Psalms. And as we know, it's 150 independent compositions, right? They don't necessarily link together. They don't thread together. Some of them do keep a common theme from chapter to chapter. We also know that approximately 73 of the 150 Psalms were written by King David. We also know that Psalms is the most quoted Old Testament book into the New Testament. We know that it's quoted or paraphrased over 400 times in the New Testament. We also learn that these are poems. They're lyrical. They're meant to be sung to music and choirs with musical instruments and a lot of singers for the effect of praise and worship. We also learn that as Jesus was dying on the cross, some of his last words were actually quotes from Psalms. So we see the significance of the entire book of Psalms. We also learned that Psalms was written over almost 1,000-year period from Moses all the way through the end of the prophets in the Old Testament. So as the ages of Israel were captured, Psalms were written during all those periods of time by the various authors. Now in Psalms chapter 91, I'm going to title it A Cheerful Psalm for Troubled Times. A cheerful psalm for troubled times. Now, let me read to you what Charles Spurgeon says about Psalm chapter 91. And Charles Spurgeon was a great preacher in Europe, and he lived in the mid to late 1800s, and he lived for 38 years and pastored in London. And he wrote this. He said, "In the whole collection of Psalms, there is not a more cheerful psalm. Its tone is elevated and it's sustained throughout. It is faith at its best and it speaks nobly." He quotes a German doctor who lived in London during this time. And what was interesting was during this time, there was a great outbreak of cholera in London and across the world and across Europe and Russia, and tens of thousands of people were dying. Sounds familiar. And this German doctor said, and Spurgeon is quoting him, he said this: "It is," talking about it, Psalm 91, "is the best preservative in times of cholera. And in truth, it is a heavenly medicine against plague and pest. He who can live in its spirit," of this psalm, "will be fearless. Even if once again London should become a lazar house, a house of quarantine, and the graves be gorged with carcasses." So that's an overview of what Spurgeon felt about the cheerfulness of Psalm 91, speaking about very troubled times. And now this psalm, we'll learn, it appears and appeals to three different groups. It can appeal to those who are Jews and of the nation of Israel. It can also appeal to Jesus Christ himself. In fact, some believe that this is a messianic psalm and that the person in the psalm here is really speaking about Jesus Christ. So a messianic psalm, we'll look at that. And third is, this psalm appeals to us as believers. It has an appeal to us. And we're going to look at that in our class today. So we're going to outline the book this way, the chapter this way. One is, first section is called The Hidden Life of the Believer. And I want to read to you Psalm 91, verses 1 through 3. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. That's the first section that we'll look at. The middle section I call, or the writer has called, the protected life of the believer. And I'll read to you verses 5 through 6. You will not be afraid of the terror by night, or of the arrow that flies by day, or the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, or of the destruction that lays waste at noon. So no fear, a life of no fear is the life of the believer from Psalm chapter 91. And finally, the following section in the end of the chapter we'll call the satisfied life. And I'll read to you from verses 14 through 16. And I also call this, it's called the 6 I wills of God. Okay, and listen to this. Verse 14, because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him securely on high, because he has known my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With a long life, I will satisfy him and let him behold my salvation. So this psalm is teaching us to be cheerful, not fearful in times of trouble. You know, one thing that shows me the importance of this psalm is, at the beginning of the ministry of Christ, when he's taken into the wilderness for 40 days and is tempted and faces all kind of dangers and troubles in the wilderness with wild animals and things. And during that time, or after that time, you recall the temptations of Satan. And the second temptation of Satan goes to Psalm chapter 91, and he tests God with Psalms chapter 91. Okay? So that's a little bit of insight in what we're going to be looking at today. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all again someday, giving you a big old hug. And we love you, and we're praying for you, and God bless you. Thank you.